Alrighty, it is 4:31. I think everyone that is not here said that they weren't going to be here, but we should have quorum. So we can call to order and check for live streaming. Okay, I see us on Facebook. Has anyone checked YouTube? Make sure we're good. Oh, yep, we're good there too. Okay. And I would entertain a motion to adopt the agenda. And if there is any other additions, to make a motion to amend the agenda. Justin, I know we went back and forth on a couple of things. Was there anything that we decided we definitely were adding? Do you remember? Okay. Well,
I will make the motion.
I'll second that.
thank you. And any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All right, any opposed, do the same. Okay, that was unanimous. And sorry, I don't see it on here, but let's go through and make sure we say all of our names so that we have that for the minutes. You can start.
Damaris Potter, member.
Tressa Greshak, member.
Sharon Deaver, chair. And by the way, if you could press the mic just when you're speaking, then the green light goes on, and that way it can be actually heard. And then turn it off when you're done so there's not feedback.
Rachel Yondel, member.
Steve Romanelli, member.
Okay, perfect. And then I'll move on to approval of the minutes. If there's any changes, then also mention that. Otherwise, I would entertain a motion to approve them from last meeting.
I'll motion to approve the minutes from last meeting.
I'll second that.
All right, any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, raise your hand or signify by saying aye or yes. Okay, perfect. And any opposed, do the same. All right, so that's unanimous as well. And now we can move on to communications. Does anyone have any updates to mention? And then sustainability updates from staff, if not.
I guess just the big one. So Alexa Hempel finished her term through the Mildly Climate Corps, but we were awarded another position. So we have Destiny Statina, who will be joining us first week of December. So I'll get her introduced to you all. That's the biggest news right now.
Awesome. Any public comments? We can look into anything sent to us, or we'll also check the phone lines at this time. And then also again at the end of the meeting, and after we check the phone, we can get comments from anyone interested in the audience. All right, there are no phone calls at this time. I don't believe there was any public emails unless, okay, so nothing there. So are there any comments from people in the audience that you'd like to come up and say? Okay, it's looking like no one's trying to do that, so that's okay. We'll do that again at the end in case things come up that you're interested in discussing. Okay, new business, meeting on the go.
Hello. Okay. So, I will be hosting the meeting on the go, which is about the Imagine Kalamazoo 2035 planning process. Next slide. Just to kickstart, there are some rules I have to go over real quick. So everybody's going to have an equal opportunity to speak. We're all going to listen, avoid criticism, and respect the limited time that we have. And just to give some background, I started with the Imagine Kalamazoo 2035 process through their partners program that they started. This is through the city planner, Christina Anderson, Community Economic Development Department. And that program has a bunch of people from different organizations, partners, investors in the community, different neighborhood associations, and we meet once a month and we basically do a larger version of this meeting on the go, but more internally. So the Imagine Kalamazoo 2035 is basically a community conversation that's going to shape the next 10 years of Kalamazoo. It will shape the strategic vision, the master plan, and the goals for the new developments that will be taking place in our city. So we're going to be going over 5 questions that I have here, and got one, okay. So this entire conversation is really, I can't stress enough how important it is, because without community engagement, without these discussions, especially from bodies like ours, where we have an important stake in it, we really need to not shy away from any uncomfortable discussions, any topics, like anything that you want to bring up. This is the time to do it, and it's taken very seriously, and this will help shape the next 10 years in Kalamazoo. So, to start off, we have our first question, if you want to go to the next slide. If you guys want to write this down, I would encourage you to write everything down so I can bring this back to the city planner. But just take a little minute to think about this. What has changed for the better in Kalamazoo in the last 10 years? I hope everybody has a pen. And then share out whenever you feel like it.
Are we just going to pause for a few minutes for each of these?
Yeah. If you want to write it down now or wait till later, whichever you guys want to do. So whenever you are ready, feel free to share out about what you put for the first question, and we can kind of have an open conversation about it and record everything that is said.
I'll go first. Let's see. Committees like these that are set up to advise the city council, I think it's powerful.
Okay, yeah.
Very practical. The roads are being repaired. And then the final thing I had was more openness on city issues. So the online access to information and resources has improved.
Okay, yeah, like transparency, that's really important, yeah.
Yeah, do you want us all to answer?
Yeah,
Also, is your intention for us to try to come at the perspective of being on the ECC to focus on things more related to this?
I think there can be two parts to it. So if you have the perspective from the ECC and then also just your own personal perspective, like what are things and like that affect people that you know in Kalamazoo, like what could we kind of be better at? For this question, like what has changed for the better, and that can kind of lead us into where we need to improve.
Yeah, so for the first question, I've only lived here for about 2 years, so I feel like I have
Okay.
a pretty short-sighted
Yeah, I've only been here 3 years too, so.
vision for this. But I feel like an increased awareness of sustainability-related issues just in talking with neighbors and people within, my little circle. Definitely some increased awareness, and then just movement towards complete street initiatives.
Okay.
Okay, for mine, I said we started realizing we need to focus on safe, complete, multimodal streets. We updated the tree inventory, we adopted the community sustainability plan, we declared a climate emergency, and we implemented the NFP and the NFP review board.
Okay.
I've also only been back for a very short window, so it's hard for me to say over the last 10 years what's really gotten great. But I agree. I think that the work that's being done on the roads, even though it is disruptive and can be very frustrating when you're trying to get around, is a really nice improvement and step forward on going from envisioning how we'll be able to use our city in the future and actually making it happen.
Right. Yeah, so this whole planning process is for the purpose of updating the 2025 strategic plan. And in that plan, they're at 99% of the goals in that plan have been achieved or are in the process of being completed. So that also applies to like construction and all that. So yeah, I just want to record what we all have to say just so I can kind of bring it back to them and help them in that process.
Yeah. And roads includes bike lanes.
Yeah.
I think they're great,
Yeah.
even though they're taking some adjustment.
There's so many mixed feelings about those bike lanes, but I love them.
This is my first meeting on the ECC, so I
Yeah.
can't say I can speak from that perspective, but having lived here for 14 years,
Wow.
one of the main things I see is reinvigoration of green spaces. There was a
Okay.
park down in Vine neighborhood that was not used for the first 9 years I've lived here, and since it's been redone, I want to say maybe 2020, there's families there all the time, kids use it all the time. Bronson Park as well, so green spaces overall have improved in my opinion. And like they said, the roads, and with that access to downtown, I guess revitalization of the area down there draws a lot of people in, walking, foot traffic, as well as driving. So, yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Well, you can certainly tell who's well-informed and who's been paying attention over the past 10 years. But Steve, who would have said that he was like looking over my shoulder there. He has the first two, well, actually, it's reflecting in everybody. Even though the construction has been a pain, the roads really have improved. And then the bike lanes, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
That has, and yeah, there's a lot of controversy with that, but that's getting hammered out. But those are the two things that that I was stuck on until I don't know if it was Sharon that had mentioned it, but the city website, I thought, has really improved, and the accessibility of the information and people getting back to you seems to have improved a lot. And I'd say, again, I haven't really been, paying attention like somebody's going to be testing me like this on it, but I'd say in the last 5 years that seems to have gotten better. But other than that, I've got no insight over what's already been said.
Okay, yeah. And do you guys live near downtown, outside of downtown? It's kind of a mix.
It's a mix, but we walked here.
Yeah, I think a few of us at least live in Vine.
Yeah.
Yeah, it takes me like 6 minutes to walk here.
Nice, okay. Yeah. All right. Do you have anything to say, Justin?
No.
All right, next slide. So now, can you guys think of any challenges, new or old, that you've ran into while living in Kalamazoo, even if it's just for 2 years, 3 years, however long?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah.
So continued citizen awareness of environmental issues that they can manage themselves. I know that's on an uptick, but I still see gaps that I think they can use. Also, access and availability to the internet. We have I don't want to say large homeless problem, but being able to access the internet, which I think is very, very helpful, you have to have the equipment to be able to do that.
Right.
Houselessness continues to be challenging. And then just my own little thing, more EV chargers, because I do think EVs are still going to be continuing, and so having those more around the city.
So when we're talking about homelessness, I guess could you elaborate more on what the challenge would be there that you see?
Affordable housing, that's, I would guess, the biggest thing. That's why I said houselessness versus homelessness. So I know there are steps to try to do stuff. This is more, I think we need to continue to focus on it. That's why I put that out.
Okay, yeah. And I think you guys know that country club that's being built off of Oakland, right? There was a push to make that area affordable housing units, right? Yeah, okay. So I also see a challenge with that kind of internally with the permitting process, zoning. So I would definitely second that.
I think we've touched on this in the controversy with the bike lanes, but I think the general attitude of road use and it being designated specifically for cars, I think within my neighborhood group, I see a lot of very angry neighborhood members about the bike lane activity and things like that. And so I think that is a big challenge in just transitioning people the points of view of it not being car centric to being multimodal. I don't know if this is necessarily a challenge, but something I would love to see is a composting program within the city. I think public transit, I have coworkers who rely solely on public transit. The bus only coming once an hour is quite difficult for them, and I echo the houselessness as well.
Okay, yep.
Okay. I said implementing plans with large portions of the community. I went to the recap of the Imagine Kalamazoo 2025, and they posted the numbers of the different inputs, and I just feel like we have so many more people in the community that we need to be better about reaching out to for input in so many other ways. Also, securing funding for important environmental projects and public transit took a little downturn, I feel like, with COVID and worse hours, while we need to be focusing on that getting better, and general affordability, including housing.
Okay.
Yeah, the first one on my list is the houseless population, and that is probably, having been gone for about a decade, coming back, that was one of the like starkest things that I noticed, was how much that population had exploded.
Really?
And just I don't know, because it's not, I don't mean this as like a judgment on anyone who's in that group, just like the number of people, where you see them, how people are sort of behaving, not necessarily houseless, but an increased amount of litter is what I feel like I'm seeing anecdotally, but I have no actual numbers on that. So it's, more stories of something being like the gas station that was broken into over by Midtown. I don't know if you guys remember that story. That was like a mob went there and broke into it, and the workers were completely overwhelmed. And I feel like I've heard more stories of that. We had a bike repair shop that was right next to Vine in that small set of buildings that left because of those issues.
Really?
Yeah, and I don't want to imply that that's houseless people, because I honestly genuinely do not know. But having been gone and coming back, those are things that were new to me. I don't remember them being huge from my childhood. Maybe I was just too young. But yeah, I don't know what the solutions are. I know there are a couple factors that go into specifically the houseless issue. Some of them are very based in community and affordable housing. Some of them are based on people who are sort of migrating here for that kind of support. So there might be some other things we need to do, like job resources, or what other kinds of social support can we provide to help people transition from houselessness to being able to support themselves and sort of so that was something that I noticed. I haven't exactly noticed this, but I've heard education quality has been iffy over the past few years. Some of that's probably COVID. But I've heard complaints about KPS. I've also noticed a lot of economic disparity. You definitely have the wealthy neighborhoods and the non-wealthy neighborhoods.
Yeah, there's a huge
it's a huge
difference.
Gap. It's a huge gulf.
Huge.
Depending on which direction you drive into the city, I feel like you'd have a completely different opinion of what it's like here. This isn't fully a city issue, but the graphic packaging smell and breathing, I think, is a constant. And if we don't find a way to cap that or nip it in the bud, that's the kind of situation that can only become a bigger social justice issue over time.
Right.
Especially since they're already planted in a very economically low income space.
Yeah.
And then I also feel like the messaging for changes has been lacking, and I think there's been improvements in that area since the bike lanes. There has been a lot of effort, but there's also part of me that's like, well, yeah, but why did we give people the opportunity to be so surprised and so shocked that these things were happening? Maybe there's a way that could be handled differently in the future when we have big shifts and big construction projects. Of course, I also know you can do a lot and people still don't read your notices. So I'm not sure what the solution is there either.
Yeah.
The number one for me, having lived here and rented for 14 years, is certainly housing affordability and just rental affordability. Not everyone has the financial stability to own their own home, or at least, at a young age, or at any age for that matter, with the way the economy has become. And yeah, it's not saying I know exactly how to tackle that situation, but that's one of the challenges that I personally have faced. Also a big walker, as everyone has, echoed the changes with bike lanes and just roads. You would think in a relatively walkable city that so many people wouldn't be so hell-bent on driving everywhere, but yeah, that is a major problem, especially I live right near the bike lane that runs down Lovell, and I see every day almost delivery truck, FedEx truck, UPS truck just pulling over and parking, like jumping
Right in
those
the
little
bike
curbs,
lane.
parking in the bike lane.
Yeah.
Was going for a run, saw someone hit the sign, one of those guys that says bike lane.
Oh my
so,
God.
Yeah, I get they have a schedule to keep, but yeah, it seems like there's not a lot of respect for.
Yeah,
the
I've
new
seen that
efforts.
a lot. Yeah, because I use those bike lanes all the time. And it seems to me it's more of a social issue of just transitioning to like micro transit. It's not popular. It's not like people don't think it's cute. It's not easy. It's just that's the issue, even if the infrastructure is slowly getting there. So, yeah, I've been hearing a lot of that too. Do you have anything else? All right.
It seems like it's the top of the list for everybody, the unhoused, and that is such a gnarly topic to deal with on every level that I'm not going to throw any more in on it than that. Environmental education, I feel like that is something that could really be improved, and that's multifaceted as well. I paddled the Kalamazoo River a lot, and the trash that's accumulating there, on and off, is something that's certainly been a concern. And then just in general terms, this whole traffic calming thing, in my opinion, has been a failure, probably mostly because of people don't understand what's going on. And frankly, some of the things they've implemented, I think, are ridiculous. As an example, I know there's a neighborhood, Winchell neighborhood, has got 2 roundabouts in a low traffic area, and they put stop signs up to enter into the roundabout. Stop signs and yield signs and roundabout signs. So it's like, well, what is it? Is it a roundabout?
Yeah,
Is
it
it a
kinda defeats the
3-way,
whole
4-way
purpose.
stop?
I mean, it's just,
Yeah.
it seems to be just not particularly well implemented. But again, I think that education is key to everything. So the more we can get of that, the better.
And where did you say those roundabouts were again?
Chevy Chase, that actually might have both of them on Chevy Chase. Someplace up in the Winchell neighborhood.
Okay.
Right, one of them is 1 block off of Oakland Drive, and the other one, maybe it's Broadway. The other one is it's right by Woods Lake. But yeah, it's really something to see. I've sent that picture to so many of my friends all over the place that here's something that you don't see every day. A stop sign to go into a roundabout. So
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. Okay. Let's see. I think we can combine the next 2. So if you just want to write down and say real quick what a happy and healthy city means to you, and then also give an example of a way that your neighborhood kind of exemplifies that, embodies that.
Well, let's see. I'll throw in a couple of things around describing happy and healthy. A desire to be engaged by a wider swath of the community and or city members to be involved, that they want to be involved. And it's kind of a corollary. Citizens understand what they can do to make an impact, not what the city can do for them. And then the other thing, just as an example, I've recently heard about Parkview Hills has started its own use of composting. So I think that's what, a community says we're going to do X. And they've received some support from the city to be able to do that. So I think that's an example.
Okay.
Inclusivity, accessibility, green space, complete streets, the areas where you can kind of live, work, and play all in the same space, good public transit, air and water quality. Something in my neighborhood, Jericho, is like a community organization, and all in the same building. There's a yoga studio, a coffee shop, a ceramic studio, and honestly, I don't even know what else. But it's walking distance for me, and that's something I really love, and use all of those things.
Yeah, so walkability really means a lot to you. Yeah, I agree.
I said places to exist without requiring money, connecting everything that we need without relying on individual car ownership, which includes housing, food, activities for community, and then also emphasizing local input. And my neighborhood does some good things as far as having good park access, some different kinds of businesses that we're able to support with just walking, like miniature grocery, sort of, the bodega, restaurants, and different community events.
Yeah, okay.
Okay. So for me, a happy, healthy city means people who are feeling reasonably supported by their government and community, not, necessarily coddled, just confident.
Yeah.
Just sort of a love of nature or a respect of nature, I think is nice. Visible activity, I think anywhere where you go where you see people who are playing outside, just casually, I think is a really good sign of a happy city, because people feel safe, they feel engaged, they feel like they can participate. Similarly, a public that is engaged in what's going on in the city, in their community, and community groups that are engaged and are engaging with one another. And I'll say, just as sort of a shout out to our community, as someone who's working with a community that struggles with like cross-departmental engagement or working with their neighbors, Kalamazoo does a pretty good job of working together on things. We're not perfect, but I rarely hear of fights between community groups. It's mostly a how can we do this together, which I think is phenomenal. And I think an example in my neighborhood, I think Davis Park is really great. It's really nice. They go there. I always see kids there, and it's been a really great example of community improvement through green space.
I'm going to echo a lot of those points. Vibrant green spaces, like you said, I sat in this room 5 years ago, however long, hoping and praying to get that park revamped, and when they finally did, you see families there all the time. There were families in here that their children don't skateboard or anything like that, but they were just here to support and happy to see that that space was going to be used. It was decrepit for a long time. Some of that equipment and the planters that were there were not the most safe, in my opinion. So, yeah, vibrant green spaces, outdoor activities. I grew up outside in a small town. The more you get to know your neighbors, usually the safer the place is. I guess there's no data that I have on that, but in my opinion, if you know your neighbors, people are looking out for each other and things like that. Yeah, and with that, walkability of the city, the more you're walking around, the more you get to know people, the more you get to engage with your community, and ultimately community engagement with the city, which I think the city does a pretty darn good job with, like National Night Out, the neighborhood parties and things of that nature, and then like more sub-community engagement groups, like the groups that run the garden on Oak Street, and I'm not sure if it was sanctioned or not, but all the work they did on the corners in Vine Street to kind of beautify those makes it a little prettier place to walk around. So,
yeah.
Yep.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Definitely.
So for Happy Healthy City, I put down a walkable city that is welcoming. And as an example of that, the nature walking route that the city has put up that goes through Asylum and Kleinstuck, and I'm not sure where else it loops around to, but it actually encourages people to get out and do exactly what you were just saying, get out and meet people and become part of the neighborhood. Another aspect that I think is lots of housing opportunity in the central city. And we'll go any more into detail than that. And then also the other thought that came is the ease of getting involved. I think it's a good idea to have committees like this where people rotate through and can talk to their neighbors about, hey, I'm on this committee, I'm on that committee, we do this, but encouraging community involvement is kind of the best way to get anything done, in my opinion. So, yeah, whatever you can do to promote the ease of getting involved, I think, is important.
Yeah, I think for me, probably one of my biggest, something I'm really passionate about is having accessible, transparent information that can apply to everybody, no matter like the education level or anything like that. Because when we talk about like local government and politics and, what we do here, like it's just kind of intimidating to a lot of people. And I think people disengage really easily. And, whether that's because they don't understand it, it's boring to them, whatever the reason is, it's something that really I see a lot with the people that I'm around. So that's definitely a challenge that I would like to see improved. So that's my 2 cents. But anyways, we can move on to the last question, I think. Well, second to last. I'm going to change this up a little bit and say, what are the areas specifically that you think should be improved in the city, whether that's like with construction or like green spaces, something like we can do, something we can do in our personal lives, like what is going to help streamline some of these like qualities that we just listed out here and actually make that a reality?
Well, a couple of things that I've thought about. So, and I'm actually using the question that's up there now. So anyway, there's great progress, I think, that's been made on the roads and the accessibility. I would even continue to broaden that around, continue the focus on the infrastructure, the supporting stuff that's going to enable this city to continue to grow and be vibrant. And there's another piece, because I know that some businesses, particularly downtown, irrespective of the road, construction that has been going on, I know it's hit them. But the viability of a very vibrant downtown. So I think we all know the State Theater just closed. And that, in a lot of ways, was kind of the heart and soul when it came to, I don't want to say the KIA isn't, but when it comes to live performances, that and it's a beautiful theater. Whatever the reasons were for it not being able to stay open, I think we need to continue to focus on the businesses within that center. I don't know what the answers might be, but I know there's been a lot of attention and a lot of engagement with the businesses that are there. I think we need to continue that focus.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you asked what we could do, kind of focusing on more of a micro level. And I think a lot of us do choose to walk places. We choose to compost at home, and just continuing to make those choices and being involved in our community, advocating for those things, just sharing with our neighbors, with the people around us about what we're already doing.
I also just answered that, sorry, but I said we could build upon the sustainability plan, complete and safe streets, bikeability and walkability, and green space. Especially, it'd be great to officially secure green space with its own zoning designation.
Yes, I agree.
I kind of started with one question, then to the other. I think something that's really good that we should continue to hold on to and encourage are the festivals that happen. I think they do such a good job of bringing people into downtown and kind of encouraging that activity. So any of the like Latinx Festival or Pride or, you know, Taste of Kalamazoo type stuff, I think is really, really valuable. More on the ECC or, you know, city front, I think, so Vines, many of you know, has reforested the vine, right? And I don't always know if what they're doing is technically sanctioned or not. I don't really care. But I think what they do is really valuable, right? So they, you know, they go and they plant trees in front of people's homes, or they'll work on curb lawn spaces that are otherwise, you know, they're not like people's private property that they're just doing this to. But I would love, if it's not already, for that to be not only sanctioned by the city, but supported. Saying, if you have a group like this, we will help provide funding. And maybe we even just have one group per neighborhood whose role is that. Because in Vine, it's great. We've got it. We've got the support. We've got people who are willing to do it. I would love to see that sort of thing being financially supported by the city in Edison, or in Northside, or, you know, any of these spaces that otherwise might not have the resources to do it, but may very well want to do that. So I think that would be really nice. Similarly, I know a lot of us are on other, you know, they show up for Reforest the Vine and things like that. But I think us showing up in a more official capacity at some of those events could be really valuable. It would give us more information on what's going on. It would also, you know, it would keep those conversations flowing. And goodwill from the city. And I think there's more that we could maybe do for messaging for the environment. Okay. I think we already do a good job, but I think, you know, I don't know if it's helpful to Justin or not, but if we talk about things that maybe we want to push, things that we think are valuable for the city, and give support for that. I think like Mode Shift does a really good job having official support from the city to get that messaging out. Maybe could make the bike lanes, well, maybe could have made them slightly more popular. So being involved in that way, I think, could be very valuable as well.
Yeah.
I want to chime in here real quick. Also, if we could try to wrap this up in like 5 minutes, I think we should still have time for everything.
I know, this is going on for a while.
But there is a Grow Edison, if you would like to look into them, and there was expressed interest on the north side. I don't know if they got their tree planting group implemented yet. And also, Reforest Vine is always doing a misdig with the city to make sure that we are not cutting into utility lines or anything.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I think real quick, we'll go to the very last question. If you just want to shout out what comes to mind. So I actually don't know if it's on the sheet, but who else should be included in these conversations? Whether that be through meetings on the go, just imagine that Kalamazoo 2035, what group should we reach out to? Are there any people that don't have the representation they deserve?
This isn't necessarily a group. I feel like hopefully you guys have some data on, you know, who's responding from different neighborhoods. I remember when I was looking at the sustainability survey that was conducted, it was very heavily weighted to specific neighborhoods. So doing more in the neighborhoods that aren't appearing, I think would be very helpful. I'm also wondering if we're going to the places that people are. I see a lot of messages of come join us at this place. And they are central places, that's not a problem. But in terms of behavior and barriers, I have to go there to catch you. And I think we could be doing more as a city to be going to grocery stores or the local parks. I mean, we've mentioned Davis Park a couple times because we live right next to it, right? But having people who are there who are able to engage would be very helpful. I helped out with a Parks and Rec thing at one point, right, where they were trying to collect public information. And we did have a lot of people show up. It was at a public park. It was right by the kick pool. But I couldn't help but be okay, so we have maybe 20-ish people here in this space, maybe 80 people or more over at the kick pool, which is right over there. We can't expect those people to come to us. And I think if we do a better job of that, then again, when we change the roads and put in bike lanes, people will be more aware of that conversation and the discourse of, I didn't know this was happening, I'm really mad about it. Well, you had greater opportunity to be aware of it. I guess it gives a more cause if they're actually still upset.
Yeah, I also really agree. We need to be able to meet people where they're at, and that, very individual conversations. In every single meeting I've been in with Imagine Kalamazoo partners, affordable housing gets brought up and the unhoused, and yet those people aren't ever at the table. We don't ever go out and actually just go up one-to-one and invite them, and then expect them to have that type of information or care enough when it doesn't seem like the city cares about them.
Well,
so
I think too, especially when we're talking about the unhoused population, it's comparatively easy for me to sit up here and say, well, we need affordable housing, we need to do this, we need, something I've noticed for them is, they're kicked out of the shelters and then they literally have nowhere to go, so they just sit in the library, which sure, but that's their lives right now. But really we should be asking them as directly as we can of what do you guys want? What are your goals?
They're the ones that live it every day, and yet we just sit here and we talk about them.
And if we don't have their buy-in, we could come up with the best plan in the world. They might still not do it because it's not actually what they needed.
And it's a deeper issue of government distrust, just distrust in institutions in the city. I mean, I think that it's very deeply rooted. Anyone else real quick? No? All right. Well, so Imagine Kalamazoo 2035, their goal is to move into the planet phase. We're in the Imagine It stage right now. And that will be, the deadline for that is the end of 2025. So should be seeing more soon. But yeah, I appreciate you guys.
Do you want these? Do we just pass them down to?
Yeah, you can just pass them down to me.
Thank you. All right, so unfinished business, we need to discuss the absences. So I believe everyone got that email with a few different perspectives of how we would want to maybe handle that. If I remember right, the bylaws currently say we assess after 3 absences for the year, but we had talked about, and Steve sent some examples of how different boards are doing it. So does anyone have any strong opinions that, for how you would like to handle that? I guess a few things to keep in mind is we need quorum to be able to do this meeting and have things that we can vote on. But yeah, I guess. Anyone comments?
Well, one question when I was just rereading again of what we do in the ECC, it says that if, the board can decide or the officers can decide for an individual to put them, if they've missed 3, as an associate member. What are the limitations that an associate member has?
They just can't vote. So they would be able to have their voice heard still as a part of expertise or whatever. They can decide on how involved they want to be. I don't know if that would make people still want to come the same amount or not, but yeah, voting is the biggest thing for that.
And could that be reinstated?
Having for them to be able to be reinstated, that I'm not sure how that works. I feel like the only time I know of associate members is a few people who had served both terms of 3 years and 3 years. Then they wanted to stay on for sometimes a little while to see a project through or something. They've stuck around, or we have had the board's committee so full that there was extra people. They were an associate member until a seat opened up, and then we voted them in. So I don't know, except for that it's normal to have up to 2 3-year terms. So I don't know how that would work for splitting it up. And
Yeah, I could check with the city clerk's office too, but just guessing. So if you get kind of demoted, might be too strong of a word, but it seems if you get demoted to an associate member to get back to a full member, I believe you'd have to go through city commission again. And at that point, they would look at your attendance and wonder, if you'd be a good fit.
does anyone else have any opinions for how they would like that to go? We don't have co-chair today, so I know the idea was voting on that. How many absences are we at for the one with the most absences?
This would be, last week was the 4th, or last month was the 4th.
So
this would be the
fifth.
5th. And we did cancel 2-3 meetings this year.
Yeah.
So, but basically here, so as written, each member is expected to attend scheduled ECC meetings. If a member misses more than 3 meetings per year, the ECC officers have the authority to change that individual's membership. So again, have the authority. We could take no action, but kind of unwritten, it seems like it was 6 absences, but I just want to get this cleaned up and we can move on from this absence stuff. So there's 2 issues here. One, what do we do with this individual? And then what do we do going forward?
Can I make a suggestion? Because our understanding as a group was 6, I feel like the individual, maybe we shouldn't kick them out today or demote them today, because that feels like kind of a mean thing to spring on somebody, even though we all should know that it's 3. But I'm okay with the 3 absences staying in here. I guess I'm the grandfather that person into the 6 for this year, and then starting on the new calendar, then we'll all be on the same page that it's 3. That's my opinion.
And just a clarification, just so I'm sure, I hate to be a pest. It's a recommended removal by the action of the members. So the officers actually have the authority, meaning the chair and the co-chair.
I will say that Rob also is no longer on the board. He stepped down. So there is an opening again. So we don't have a full board right now. But it can come down to attendance as far as quorum. But I'm okay if you're okay with waiting till next month when we have a chair and a co-chair to discuss this further. I do feel like I don't feel like I need to I guess, remove anyone at this moment. It's not like we have a whole bunch of people trying to fight for that chair at this moment. I do feel like if we have more interest in the council moving forward, that it would be good to, at the time of a third absence, have a discussion with that person to see where they're at, for how much more they think they're going to be missing, to see if it makes sense for them to choose to step down themselves, which has often been the case if people have stepped down. So yeah, let's postpone that a little bit, that piece. But I guess, would we want to vote for moving forward as how we would like to handle that? How does everyone feel about that, having discussion at the 3 meetings of missing to see where people are at, and then going from there?
Yeah, I'm okay with that.
So we would just need to be notified when someone hits that 3 each time, if that's something you can do moving forward. So, okay, so should I entertain a motion for that?
I will make the motion.
Second.
Could you state exactly what the
Yeah,
motion is?
probably should do that.
Because,
Yeah, so discussion, I don't know. I guess we want to write that out probably, but for the attendance policy to assess a person's position on the committee after 3 absences with that individual to see what their, I guess, potential absences moving forward would be, if they would be interested in stepping down to an associate position and going from there. But leaving it in there that it's possible that we could remove someone. I mean, it's always possible that we wouldn't be able to reach that person. I might need to make a decision. That hasn't happened, but that is something that could happen. Is that said well enough?
Yeah, and I think if we're sticking with what it says in the bylaws and
Okay.
getting away from the 6, I don't even think we need a motion.
We don't need a motion. Okay, well then let's just plan to discuss it after 3. Cool, sounds good. Okay, so next is discussing officer positions. So I have 1 more month as chair, and then I will be done my second 3-year term. So I will be finished with the ECC at this time, and we will need a new chair. Has anyone, I guess, would anyone be interested in the possibility of being chair or vice chair? David, vice chair, is not here right now, so I'm not sure where he stands with that, but.
I'm going to say I'm overcommitted right now, so where it sounds fine, I cannot do that. It would not be kind to any of you for me to even attempt.
So is the vice chair position also up then, or is that on a different timeline?
Well, I guess I don't know if we would automatically have to choose someone, which I would assume be him if no one steps up. So then if he was automatically chosen, then we would need a vice chair. So I guess, yeah, the main responsibilities being setting the agenda and communications. So, yeah. So is there interest? I guess we can keep thinking about it technically, but only for 1 more month, so.
Yeah, so just to read everyone for the bylaws here. So election of officers will occur by a plurality vote by ballot with the results announced at the January meeting. No notice of such annual meetings need to be given. Failure to such notice. So basically, yeah, every January you vote, and if you're the incumbent, the vice chair, and so yeah. So you're not guaranteed your position, but assuming the ballot here stays the same, you keep it.
It has not usually been something that's highly fought over, so.
I did have a question just as we're thinking about this. If no one says that they are interested in being chair and David becomes chair, where is he at in his terms? For ECC, is he in his second?
Oh, as far as
Yeah.
years? Do you know offhand how many years he's been on? I feel like only 2, but I could be wrong.
I was just curious if he was
I
going to
mean-
be up next year, if that would play into our decision.
I'm
just
I feel like I've only been chair this year. I don't know. So, I mean, you can always do it for 1 year, even if it's your last year, but.
It says here he's on his first term, and his first term expires 2026. So appointment date was 2023.
So did he start in 2024 this year or 2023?
Appointed 2023.
Which, okay.
And his term ends 2026. That's his first term. Then second term conceivably could go to 2029.
Okay, I am not hearing any decisions being made right now, so we can move on, but just keep in mind that will need to be a thing. Okay, yeah, so think about volunteering for that. It's really not that hard, so. Okay, then moving on, we were going to continue bird-friendly window design discussion, and I hope everyone got my email with the attachment. P.S. Are you in the new email? Okay. Can we make sure he's in those communications? I'm so sorry if you didn't get those. Thank you for being here without them.
Is it in the meeting right here under the bird-friendly window design, or it's a different?
It's a document that I forwarded to we basically have an email environmental at kalamazooCity.org that people can email, and that goes to every single person on the committee. And soon let's see. Okay, so I will try to pull it up here. So this, basically, I'm going to present this as something that we could vote on today if we were interested, and we vote on things to recommend to the city commission, and then they would vote on it. And this was put together, I believe, by Gail, maybe some other people, and Gail's the one who presented on the bird safe building design. So anyway, I'll just read it in case you didn't get through there. I feel like we have time for that. So, purpose. This building ordinance has been created to reduce bird mortality at the city of Kalamazoo from windows or other building features known to increase the risk of bird collisions. Whereas birds provide valuable and important ecological services, whereas Kalamazoo County has recorded 331 species of resident and migratory bird species, 20 of which are birds of conservation concern, whereas birding is a hobby enjoyed by 46 million Americans with an annual 107 billion total industry output in the United States, whereas as many as 1 billion birds may be killed by collisions with windows every year in the United States, whereas new buildings can be designed to reduce bird deaths from collisions without significant additional cost, whereas exist strategies, to mitigate collisions on existing buildings, whereas witnessing a collision is upsetting, sad event, whereas no person wants to live or work in a building that kills wildlife, whereas facades with more than 30% glass usually increase costs and CO2 emissions from heating and cooling, whereas bird-friendly practices can go hand in hand with energy efficiency improvements, whereas state-threatened peregrine falcon resident in downtown Kalamazoo, whereas peregrine falcon are protected by the state of Michigan and are protected federally under the Migratory Bird Treaty Act, whereas 3 young peregrine falcons have been killed in window collisions since 2014, whereas numerous other species of birds, typically migrants, are killed by window collisions in the city of Kalamazoo, and whereas the city of Kalamazoo is in partner in applying to the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service for the Urban Bird Treaty designation as a bird-friendly city. Now, therefore, the City Commission of the City of Kalamazoo does hereby ordain as follows. This is what we're voting on for the therefore part. Section to be determined, I guess, of the City of Kalamazoo's general ordinances is created to read as follows. Definitions Glass, all glass including spandrel glass, reflective and/or transparent non-glass materials, any non-glass materials that are transparent or highly reflective, including but not limited to plexiglass and polished metal. Bird activity zones, the zone between 0 and 100 feet above grade. Auxiliary structures, structures that pose a significant collision risk to birds wherever they are found, including but not limited to transparent or highly reflective railings, including balconies, noise barriers, wind barriers, including in parking structures, transportation or weather shelters, including both private and public bus and train stops, small standalone buildings that present conditions that can be both transparent and reflective, gazebos, external ticket booths, any other freestanding glass, plexiglass, or other clear, transparent, or highly reflective freestanding structures. High-risk building features, skyways, skywalks, all floors of buildings, building connectors, fly-through conditions where one or more panels of glass provide a clear line of sight, or glass corners where birds can see one side of the building and out the other side, creating the illusion of a void leading to the other side. Gazing adjacent to courtyards, atria, open and enclosed. 3 floors of glazing adjacent to any green roof or partial green roof. Major renovations and additions involving glass, any renovation in bird activity zone that replaces at least 25% of the structure's existing glass or transparent or reflective materials, or adds any new glass or transparent or reflective materials. Bird-friendly material, glass, or materials that meet any of the following conditions. Any product with the American Bird Conservancy material threat factor of less or equal to 30. And you can visit birdsmartglass.org to view the continuously updated database. Any product that follows American Bird Conservancy's prescriptive rating criteria at abcthreatfactor.org. Glass with exterior surface 1 obstructive and effectively covered by building integrated structures that do not have gaps larger than 12 inches in any dimension, including non-glass double skin facades, metal screens, fixed solar shading exterior, insect or solar screens, and other features as determined by building department or similar that meet these conditions. Continuous surface materials, including spandrel glass and polished or brushed metals, whose surface 1 gloss reading follows ABC prescriptive rating criteria to ensure that they do not produce strong reflectives. Threat factor shall mean a measure of birds' ability to see and avoid a building material. Threat factor is determined by a number ranging between 1 and 100 that indicates the relative effectiveness of materials or assemblies used to reduce bird collisions. A threat factor of 1 represents the least threatening, and a threat factor of 100 represents the most threatening. And the last part, requirements, 100% of the glazing for all building types must be bird-friendly glass, and for the following projects: all new construction in a bird activity zone, major renovations and additions involving glass and reflective and or transparent materials in the bird activity zone, all auxiliary structures, regardless of whether the rest of the building or project triggers these bird-friendly building requirements, all high-risk building features, regardless of whether the rest of the building or project triggers these bird-friendly building requirements. Any thoughts?
I mean, I think it's really interesting that 20 species of birds in Kalamazoo are of conservation concern. I mean, I think that's a pretty large number that really kind of shows the importance of having an ordinance like this. I guess I know that there were some peregrine falcons that have been killed in some collisions. I wonder if those were in this zone that is in here, the bird activity zone. I would assume so.
I'm pretty sure.
Yeah, so I think there's definitely a need for something like this. I'm not as educated about the criteria for some of these bird-friendly materials. that are provided here, though. So I'll look at it.
Yes, there were a bunch of examples she gave. I don't know if you were here for that one or not, but
Okay. So I've seen like a lot of examples of it. So yeah,
it's not one way that they would have to do it. There's a whole
there's
bunch
a
of
lot.
options.
There's a lot. Yeah, I really like the ones with like the kind of discrete patterns on them, like the shapes on them. So yeah.
I want to like it. I'm a little concerned that the way it's written is like, it's so prescriptive. I mean, 0 to 100 feet is a huge, that's just a massive amount of space. And reading this, it loops in, new builds, it loops in homeowners, it doesn't, if you're trying to redo a home that's falling apart in Vine, you're going to have to pay for this, and this isn't something you're going to be able to pick up at Menards or Lowe's. And that's not me saying I don't want some version of this. I'm just worried the way that it's written right now, even if we did recommend it, it would not be approved, because I can see all of the people who would be reasonably upset about not just the financial cost, but the amount of work in finding these solutions. I think if we're talking about new builds or we're talking about construction companies, they have the capacity for that. I think if we're talking about individual homeowners, I mean, what qualifies as a major renovation? Maybe that was, I guess, any reservation in the bird-friendly zone that replaces at least 25% of a structure's existing glass. Any new glass or transparent or reflective materials. I'm just not sure the way it's written we're going to get community buy-in. I think they'll just hate us.
Which, to build off of that, to your point, then I think this should be discussed and shared with some of the major stakeholders.
Yeah.
Not just home repair, improvement. We're talking about construction companies. Not that. I just think it's important to get as much input and concerns from that audience.
I think I agree with you, because it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm going to roll over and be like, oh, it costs too much money. Oh, you don't want to do it. Okay, we won't. But I do think it's important that this is very much written from the perspective of a group of people we know that are so weighted on the side of pro-bird that they're probably willing to forego any of the concerns that the other stakeholders have. And I just don't see it.
I think it would be helpful to have the people, especially Gail, that put this together to be here for some questions. I don't know how much those are concerns. I don't really have the same inclination of feeling like we owe certain people for doing for just going about business as usual and to fight back. I don't know. I feel like it's really not that big of an ask, and it's a big problem, and there's not that many people that are able to speak for the birds, but there's plenty of people that are already...
See, but this is where I'm saying it's not even like, if you don't talk to people, if you don't engage them in a process that heavily affects them, we could run the risk of a bigger pushback and a hard, like, we absolutely refuse to do this, we are going to picket you guys, we are going to lobby excessively to make sure we don't have to do this. That's the risk that we run if we don't engage other stakeholders, and that's...
Yeah, I mean, we can see who that would potentially be, I suppose, but I think just having someone who wrote this to maybe would be able to help with giving some more perspective. But yeah, I guess the reason for this is because people aren't doing the right thing without something written down, and I really, from the presentation last month and from my own research into this, don't feel like it's really that big of an ask, especially for a community that's been working for years at trying to be a bird-safe community, from the urban bird
See, I to an extent, I agree with that, but then I think about, like, if I need to replace a window on my own home, then what does that mean for someone like me, or someone like me a year ago having to implement that? I mean, it sounds really good on paper. I'm just not sure that it's as easy to accomplish as it could be. And maybe the solution is just clear messaging.
Just to talk on the homeownership thing, I'm not sure if you live in a historic district that they can't even force you to do that,
Right.
one. So, fine there. And two, I don't think even if you replaced every window in your house, it would, I think, constitute the type of work that they're talking about being done.
I think it would, though, because, like, my family replaced a couple of windows, and they were like, oh, we should have replaced all of their windows. If you're replacing all of the windows in your home at once, what does that mean?
Well, again, in a historic community, you can't do that without approval for each window. You can't just blind.
Right. But I'm saying outside of the historic district even. Because that's one. Plus, if the historic district's codes directly conflict with these codes, because I don't think the historic district would love if I put a window in that was age appropriate and then covered it with stuff that was not age appropriate.
Well, I think one of the cheap ways to do that wouldn't change the structure of the window, even in a historic neighborhood, would be the patterns that can be put on top of the existing glass. That's the simpler methods. The dot design or whatever different kinds of design.
Sure. I just think there's the perfect world version of this, and we need to remember that most people are not living in a perfect world. We can't just prescribe that they make a huge change in how they do these projects just because we want it to happen.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to be able to vote on this. That's totally fine. If you think of specific people or specific questions, I'd recommend writing those down and figuring out who we can get here for the next meeting to discuss this further.
So, quick question. So if, I guess just for you, Tressa, like if the ordinance had a provision that explicitly like excluded homes, residential homes, would that change?
No, I don't know. This is the thing is I don't want to give the impression that I'm not supportive. I just, whenever there's a major shift like this, because it is a major shift, it's not, at the moment, it's not something that you can easily go pick up at Menards, right? I feel like it deserves broader conversation than just well, we like it because it's what we support. And I really suspect that if we sent it to be voted on by the city the way it's written, it would just get sent back to us. Like, it's not going to hurt us to do due diligence before we send it to them, because they're going to want to do exactly the same things. They're going to want to engage stakeholders. They're going to want to talk to homeowners. They're going to want to talk to the construction industry. And at least if we do that first, then we can say, well, yeah, we know the construction industry feels this way, but we also know that the actual cost of it versus the cost of a regular window at this point is, it's this many cents on the dollar.
For the sake of time, we have 10 minutes left till 6, so I'd really like to move on. And I just want to remind everyone that we are here to recommend things to the City Commission. They can always say no, and then we could change it for how we want to do it. We are here for environmental concerns, so I think this is a really good environmental concern. Maybe we need to tweak it, but that's why please let me know or reach out to anyone that you might consider a stakeholder, and we can get some questions answered at the next meeting. Okay, let's move on to reports, just because that's all we have here. So Bobby is not here, so we'll move on from those two. Wildlife and Natural Resource Protection.
We didn't get the chance to meet for the deer committee. Otherwise, no updates.
Planning Commission.
The only thing at this month's Planning Commission, someone presented the the CIP, why am I blanking on what that stands for right now? But the capital improvement plan, there we go, for next year. So talking about things that are going to be going on in the city, talking about more construction, road renovations, and replacing water lines and things like that. I don't have the list in front of me of the roads that are going to be worked on, but that was really the only update we had.
Thank you. Okay, tree committee, they didn't meet, so Thomas said there was nothing to report there. Asylum Lake Policy Management Council, they met for the last time this year. P.S. I need someone to recommend for next year to be the liaison, so I'll need to know that by next month to submit an official recommendation from the ECC while I'm still on it to be the liaison for the Asylum Lake Policy Management Council. For several years, they were meeting remotely. Now we have met in person a few times, so it's probably a mixture of that. It's a commitment of once a month, and then besides that, whatever additional you would want to put into it for invasive pools and things like that. But I'm just throwing that out there. But yeah, we wrapped up the education portion of the stormwater management project that's been ongoing for many years. So that was reported. Yeah, that was super interesting. But yeah, ongoing for other parts of that project, basically, and you could be a part of it. So I'll leave it with that, and feel free to ask me any questions if you do have questions about being a part of that. It's a cool council. Okay, Parks and Rec. So that is also an open position right now since Rob stepped down. So I don't know, probably no one had a chance to think about that, but would anyone be interested in taking that position over?
Well, you really didn't take a breath in there after you said that about the liaison but I would do the Asylum Lake liaison if you want.
Great.
But not the parks, so.
What time does the Parks and Rec meet? What's their schedule?
I don't know that one because I'm not on it, but I can say Asylum Lake Policy Management Council is the second Thursday of every month at 7 p.m. Sorry, lots of words tonight. Yeah, Parks and Rec, I feel like, I don't know offhand. I feel like it was slightly inside of an 8 to 5 schedule Monday through Friday, if that is what you were wondering. Yeah. So keep, I guess, think about that. If you're interested, maybe look up that time, because it would be great to have someone there for sure. Moving on, we do not have David here for the next two. So Waste Working Group, do you have an update for us?
Yeah, I'm just going to move through this very, very quickly. There are a couple of slides where we can probably get that to you. I'm not going to focus on September so much. But for October, just a couple of stats, 1.7758 tons of recyclables so far, 4,437 pounds of electronics have been put in. Leaf collection, as you probably already know, it's starting within the city. It started on November 4th, and it's going to go through December 20th. So just to give you an update, no numbers yet because they just started. And then December 28th and January 25th are the next number 6 foam and electronic events. So I would expect to have more information come out about that.
Cool, thank you. All right, well, 5 minutes left. Final thoughts from members?
What were the dates on those?
December 28th and January 25th.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh, 2 months in a row.
Can I say one more thing about the window bird safe thing? I want to say for when we talk about it next month, I am very happy to recommend that we recommend a policy. I just think we should be prepared for more work.
Yeah, not against a policy. Okay. Hopefully we can figure out a way to amend it as desired, because I would also really like to see that. I don't feel like it's going to be as big of a deal to the stakeholders as we're planning for, hopefully, but we can figure that out. And then any more final thoughts? And then otherwise, we're going to check the phone lines and do any in-person comments if there are any. Okay, no more comments from here. How about the phones? No one on the phones. Anyone in the audience that would be interested in commenting?
I'm Kennedy Williams. I work for a local nonprofit here in Kalamazoo called the, Institute of Public Scholarship. The topic of housing insecurity came up a lot today. So I just want to come up here and talk to you guys about a solution that we found. We're working on a housing project, and the land that we are working on the permit for is over off of Ampersea and Goal Road. Brownfield site. A lot of the cost that comes with it is, the environmental cleanup. Excuse me, let me take a breath real quick. But we've been working on this project for about 3 years now, and what I want to make sure that is super important when we address housing insecurity is that we are working with folks that are experiencing the housing insecurity. So we have what we call our advisory team, and it's all folks that used to live on Hotep before the police came and swept them all off the land. Sorry, I'm talking way too fast.
You're fine.
So my boss, Dr. Michelle Johnson, she went out and talked to all those folks and said, hey, in your ideal world, what does housing look to you? Or what does it look like to you? What does that community care look like to you? And so all of those folks that she went and talked to, or not all of them, but I would say like 10 of them, are still around working with us 3 years later now. We host bi-weekly meetings. They show up. We pay them to show up too. We pay them to do extracurricular work. We connect them with resources, different resources. So especially with like KNHS, they have a wonderful financial workshop about home ownership and those kinds of things. And so that's how we are working with the community to make sure that this housing project that we're trying to push forward is getting done in the way that the folks that are facing the insecurity would want it to be done, including even down to the design of the homes, the wraparound services that would be included, like physical health, mental health, child care, financial education, So I just really want to stress that importance of when we speak about housing insecurity, that those folks do need to be at the table because they're the ones that know. They're the ones that face it every single day. And then I had one more thing to say about that I lost. But anyway, that's what we're doing at the Institute. We are coming close to fruition of the project, which is really exciting. But I think that is the most important part is that when we talk about it, they need to be at the table too. So thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yeah, not sweeping them off of the land and taking all of their items every time would probably help too.
Quick question. Do you know when that project is going to come to fruition? Like you said, like, do you have a timeline or deadline?
We only hear it if you're in the microphone. If you could come up, that way it can be
okay.
a part of the official
okay.
comment.
Okay.
So we have all of the site plans approved by the city, zoning approves, that kind of thing. So we're working on, the biggest thing right now is just the funding. So hopefully next year we're able to break ground.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Alrighty, I feel like that is everything then. Thank you. Oh, unless there's one more comment. Sorry, come up. It is 6 o'clock, but we do? Okay.
So just off of the things, hi, my name is Rita Chandler, resident of Kalamazoo, and I work with the Institute of Public Scholarship as well. When you guys had talked about a few challenges in Kalamazoo, I did notice while I was riding my bike over by the co-op, but across the bridge, I was following a bike path that ended up ending, and I ran into a train track. So that was strange. It was a disappointing bike ride. Because of that, I found myself running into a lot of dead ends or areas that aren't bikeable. So that's a concern, especially because we pride ourselves on being a bikeable city, but they need to be accessible in all neighborhoods. I also wondered about if the downtown ambassadors are able to clean up areas beyond downtown, such as North Side, but it sounds like there's neighborhood associations that are able to do something like that. I don't know, but I do notice that the ambassadors are downtown cleaning up, so I'm wondering if that can happen on the North Side as well. And then something that could be a solution is having a centralized resource hub for needs. This would take a whole lot of work and a lot of data probably, but just having a nice spreadsheet about housing, food, next category, transportation and car repair, next category, events, third places, next category, environmental and educational categories, just to categorize it. And then another solution is having multiple days or a place to submit information after a public forum takes place. I think recently there was something about a public forum for the bike lanes and having feedback for that. I wish I could have gone to it. But even knowing where to submit something, like if I had feedback about it, and making sure that's displayed on the original social media flyer, I would have loved to be able to have my little input in that. And that, I think, is all. I was wondering, who do we contact to get involved in the 2035 plan? I did go to the website and I see that it says get involved. I haven't clicked there yet, but if you guys have a quick answer, I'll write that down, but also look into it.
So a few things. I heard there's been changes with the Imagine Kalamazoo website, but that's one place that they were allowing comments for each of the different topics to be entered. They're doing a meeting right now at the library for one of the Imagine Kalamazoo meetings. There's another one December 10th, but the city is always running those. So you should be able to call 311 and get specifics for the next upcoming meetings for those. I just happened to be planning to go to the December 10th one, so I remember that. And then also, side note, I could probably talk to you about some bike paths over there because I bike there too, and it can be confusing. But yeah, thank you for commenting. And I think that's the last, you were done, right, too?
Yes,
okay.
I am.
So that's the last person in here to be able to comment, so I think we are good. Oh.
There's also a survey online through that same link on the, well, I guess I took the sheet back. But yeah, for the Imagine Kalamazoo 2035, yeah. There's a survey that talks about all the goals, and you can answer on your own, kind of give your feedback there as well.
We can give you one of these. Okay, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome. Thank you. All right.